In this video, we'll take a moment to reflect on the history of our industry. Today, we take for granted the ability to step onto an airplane and be halfway around the world in a matter of hours. But the story of how aviation became the immense industrial powerhouse we know in 2025 is one of visionaries, risk-takers, and constant innovation. In just over a century, the airplane has gone from a fragile wooden experiment in North Carolina to a trillion-dollar global system that connects every continent, drives economies, and shapes world events. Let's step back in time and walk through that journey decade by decade to see how a dream took flight, how key pioneers shaped its course, and how aviation grew into one of the defining industries of the modern age. It all began on a windy December morning in 1903, when two bicycle makers from Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright, launched their fragile machine into the air at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. That first flight lasted just 12 seconds, but it proved that humans could fly under power. What had been a dream for centuries was suddenly real. Around the same time, pioneers like Glenn Curtiss and Alberto Santos Dumont pushed the boundaries in engines and flight design, setting the stage for competition and rapid growth. By 1910, the world was at the brink of war, and when war broke out in 1914, the airplane quickly transformed from a curiosity into a weapon. In World War I, legends like Eddie Rickenbacker in the US and Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron in Germany, showed how air combat could shape battlefields. Igor Sikorsky was designing multi-engine aircraft that foreshadowed the bombers and transports to come. The war proved that airplanes had a purpose beyond spectacle. They were tools of strategy. In the 1920s, peace returned, and so did opportunity. Surplus military aircraft filled American skies with barnstormers, while the US government's airmail contracts gave birth to the first airlines. Charles Lindbergh's solo transatlantic flight in 1927 electrified the world, while William Boeing was building an aircraft company that would dominate for decades. Bessie Coleman, the first African-American woman pilot, inspired a new generation, proving aviation was truly for everyone. The 1930s brought maturity. Amelia Earhart became an icon of courage and adventure. Donald Douglas's DC-3 made airline travel truly profitable and reliable. Pan Am's visionary founder, Juan Tripa, was charting routes across oceans. Airports, control towers, and passenger terminals began to look familiar to what we see today. Aviation was no longer an experiment, it was becoming an industry. The 1940s changed everything. Once again, war drove production into the tens of thousands. Fighters, bombers, transports, engineers like Kelly Johnson at Lockheed created revolutionary designs, while Howard Hughes blurred the lines between business, Hollywood, and aviation. And in 1947, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier, ushering in the jet age. After World War II ended, trained pilots, surplus aircraft, and a network of new airports powered a civil aviation boom. In the 1950s, commercial jets like the Boeing 707 and Douglas DC-8 made the world smaller. Air travel became glamorous stewardesses in crisp uniforms, passengers dressed in their Sunday best. Frank Whittle's jet engine invention reshaped travel forever. The 60s expanded the dream. Joe Sutter's Boeing 747 carried hundreds across oceans, while the Concorde promised supersonic luxury at twice the speed of sound. Aviation was linked with the space race, as test pilots became the astronauts who would travel into space and ultimately land on the moon and then return to Earth. With the 70s came turbulent times. In 1973, an oil embargo triggered a 400% increase in the price of oil. This had a major impact on the profitability of the major airlines of the times, and many struggled to stay in business. Hijackings were commonplace, with about 700 documented from 1970 to 1980. In 1978, in the United States, President Jimmy Carter signed into law the Airline Deregulation Act, which deregulated the airlines, and Alfred Kahn's policy unleashed competition and low fares. At the same time, Bill Lear's Learjet and Gulfstream's sleek business jets gave corporations wings of their own as private jet ownership began to take hold. By the 1980s, aviation was global. Herb Kelleher at Southwest pioneered the low-cost model with a smile, while Robert Crandall at American Airlines introduced yield management to maximize revenue. Technology, like collision avoidance systems known as TCAS, made flying safer than ever. The 1990s accelerated globalization. Michael O'Leary's Ryanair and Fred Smith's FedEx showed how low cost and cargo could change economies. GPS began to guide aircraft more precisely than ever before. Air travel was no longer for the elite, it was for the masses. The 2000s began with crisis. On September 11th, 2001, commercial airliners were turned into weapons, and the world of aviation was forever changed. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost, and the very notion of safe, open skies was shaken. In the aftermath, aviation became the front line of national security. The Department of Homeland Security was created in 2002, consolidating 22 federal agencies under one umbrella. Within it, the Transportation Security Administration was born, fundamentally reshaping the passenger experience. Airport checkpoints now featured uniformed federal screeners. Reinforced cockpit doors became mandatory, and layers of security were built into every stage of the journey. What had once been a relatively seamless process of boarding an airplane was replaced with rigorous screening, identity verification, and restrictions on what passengers could carry. At the same time, the industry itself was under immense pressure. Rising fuel prices, a fragile economy, and reduced passenger confidence led to bankruptcies and restructurings. Airlines merged in order to survive: Delta with Northwest, United with Continental, American with US Airways, consolidating into the mega carriers that dominate the US market today. Meanwhile, outside the United States, a new center of gravity emerged. Under leaders like Tim Clark, Emirates and its Middle Eastern counterparts, Qatar Airways and Etihad leveraged geography and deep state investment to transform the Persian Gulf into a global hub. These airlines connected Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas with unprecedented efficiency and luxury, redefining long-haul travel. The decade was one of both resilience and reinvention. While security concerns reshaped the way passengers interacted with aviation, airlines and global networks adapted, ensuring that the industry would continue to grow even under the shadow of one of its greatest crises. The 2010s brought efficiency and innovation. Boeing's 787 Dreamliner and Airbus's A350 used composites and advanced engines to cut fuel burn and connect distant city pairs nonstop. Low-cost carriers spread across every continent. In corporate aviation, larger, faster jets redefined luxury and productivity. And then came the 2020s. The pandemic grounded fleets worldwide, testing aviation like never before. Yet, the industry rebounded resilient, adaptive, and innovative. Sustainability became the next frontier. Sustainable aviation fuel, electric prototypes, and urban air mobility. Leaders at companies like Joby and Archer now dream of air taxis buzzing above the cities. Well, that brings us to the present day, and as you can see, it's been a wild ride with ups and downs, amazing wins, and disastrous setbacks, and yet through it all, aviation has endured. From that 12-second hop on a sandy dune in North Carolina, aviation has grown into a $1 trillion global powerhouse by 2025, connecting people, driving economies, defending nations, and shrinking our world into a global community.